We finally end our triple header with the Brazil Grand Prix. Finally, we go to the most historic and personally my favorite track on the F1 calendar. This track never really fails to deliver, and there's always some parts that come here because it is important for teams to test on a track that is very well balanced in all slow speed, medium speed, high speed, and just in general straight line speed. On this track is very important, and having the balance of the car is perfect. It would honestly be an ideal track for testing, but obviously they can't go to Brazil for testing. They have it in Bahrain. It's kind of reserved there, same with Barcelona. They're all very good tracks because they're very well balanced. If I had to compare this track to another track, it would be Zandvoort. So let's talk about the car specs because there isn't any more, I would say, humongous upgrades coming. One team is kind of talking about it, but let's talk about for every other team what we should expect coming here and how the cars are going to look like. First team I want to talk about is Red Bull. So in Mexico, they introduced some new cooling gills. Funny enough, the Red Bull car is great at cooling, but the actual AlphaTauri was the better car on cooling. Could you believe it? The actual spec of the car and the way the side pods are made make that car very, very nice on cooling. And will that be a big emphasis here in Brazil? Not as much as Mexico, but it is actually one of the highest tracks when it comes to altitude. Nowhere near to the Mexico GP, but yet again, it still is up in the air. It can be pretty hot. Sometimes the weather actually plays a factor. On a sprint weekend, it'll be important for ride heights here, so we'll see different car specs. Red Bull could actually be pretty vulnerable here. Last year, they weren't that great because they weren't able to set up their car correctly. Now, here's the thing, they got one practice, they gotta be right on it, and they have to make sure that the car is set up and the floor is riding at a height that works for the car. Brazil is pretty bumpy and it's got some curbs that can be kind of nasty. All of Sector 1 is kind of dependent on how you take those curbs. So we'll have to see how the Red Bull car actually fares here. Obviously no upgrades for the team, but the spec that you should see the car in should be the exact same spec we saw in Zandvoort, maybe a little bit more cooling on the car. Won't really reduce the drag onto it. It should be the fastest car here on a straight line and hitting those speed traps. It's gonna be a bullet here. If they get the setup right, I actually don't expect any team to beat them here, but yet again, sometimes it happens that Red Bull makes some mistakes. Very rarely, but on occasion it does happen for the team. Next team I want to speak about is McLaren. How will they fare here? So this is a track that for the McLaren car, since it's been upgraded, it will do better. If this was the original MCL 60, it would struggle here like hell. Why is that? Now the track is actually more suited to slow speed cornering cars. Funny enough, it's also about mechanical grip. Now that is something that they have actually done very well. They have the same suspension as Red Bull, the only team to have it, and it really fares well with the cars riding certain speeds and also being able to go onto your accelerator a lot faster. That is the advantage that McLaren and Red Bull have on practically the whole entire grid. Mercedes is pretty close and so is Ferrari. With the exception of that though, no other team is to that degree. They should be pretty good here in Sector 2. Yes, there is slow speed, but there also is medium speed where that car fares very well. The last sector will be kind of tricky. We'll see what type of spec they go with. I expect them to be a little bit more draggier here. In Mexico, they were pretty draggy. I expect the same for them here. It won't be as bad as it was in Mexico in the straight line, but yet again, as I said, the car there, if Lando was up there fighting within the top 3 positions, if he qualified a lot better, I think he could have been the one taking it to Max. It would have been very close between him and Lewis. I think Max is kind of unstoppable right now, so the emphasis always goes on Max will have the better Grand Prix out of all 3 of those drivers. Regardless of that fact though, McLaren should fare pretty well here. No upgrades for them. They're just testing stuff for the new 2024 car. So expect different ride heights from the team and really seeing how they did, because last year they were not good here. I actually predict that they will be a lot better here this year. Let's talk about Ferrari. Now, Ferrari's a team that's kind of tricky here. Ferrari's not going to bring any upgrades. The last upgrade they had was in Japan for their floor, but what can they actually be expecting here and how can they test a car here? This is where I think we should see the Ferrari test floor heights a lot. I think these teams are going to try and see what is the best installed floor height for them on tracks like this, because this is kind of the most familiar tracks on our calendar. A lot of medium speed, and the cars are kind of hitting this medium level of speed throughout the whole entire track. Bahrain has that. For the most part, Jeddah is like that. Yes, it has some high speed and some straights, but every single track has this medium speed. Zandvoort, even Hungary to some degree, a lot of the tracks. So how you make your car here will be very important for the new Red Bull style Ferrari that is coming out in 2024. These are words from them. I'm not just making this up. They're saying their car is going to be more Red Bull-esque. Now, obviously, we know that means with the whole side pod design, but I think that also means with a bigger undercut. Currently, the car has no undercut, if any. It does have that restriction to its actual front impact structure to where it's kind of bounced out. That probably does not do a lot of justice to their car. They have the S duct. I wonder if they're going to keep that around. It'll be a lot of things to look out for Ferrari. They keep testing. They keep doing well. A lot better in Mexico than I thought. They actually didn't even have that much engine cooling. So are they improving the reliability of the car? The car is still a magic bullet in the straights. So this should help them out here in Brazil on the last sector. Now, how I expect them to do here in sector 2 and 1, it's going to be a bit tricky. Out of the top 4 teams with McLaren, Red Bull, and Mercedes in them, I would say that they are down on the bottom, but somehow I get the Ferrari prediction wrong every single time because this team surprises me in a very good way. When I saw them get pole and second place, I was in shock. So we'll have to see how Ferrari does here. I do think that they should be okay. I don't think that they're going to be as good as the other 3 teams that I just named. Let's get into another one of those 3 teams, which is Mercedes. So let's talk about the Mercedes car. Yes, it does seem like the floor upgrade is working, which I expected. Now, there are some rumors that Lewis kind of under-exaggerated the number of how much the floor was down to ground. They were almost 100% over is what is being talked about by Autosport and a couple of other people. But Lewis himself said 0.05, which is only like 5% of what they could have done. Regardless of that fact, though, it does not add that much performance. Your plank hitting the floor, while it does add a little bit more of downforce, you're also taking more risk, and hitting the curbs actually isn't as good. You might be faster now going into high-speed corners because your car is laying on the floor better and the downforce is sticking, but it doesn't add it to the point where the car is now just a magic bullet. The actual Mercedes car is probably, if not with Ferrari, the top competitors going into next year. Now, McLaren is also up there, but I'll talk about why I think these two, and specifically Mercedes, is the team to look out for. With this new floor test, they've also been a car that is practically a Frankenstein car to me. It's a dead car that they've kind of been trying to revive because of the whole entire side impact structure and how the whole entire chassis is set up in the car. So for them here, as it is with every other Grand Prix since they've had this new floor upgrade, it's testing floor height and what they can do with the car, where they're actually gaining downforce. It does seem like the rear of the car is still slipping out a bit, but more confidence to Lewis, and Lewis is actually destroying George Russell in the latest races. So I expect that to be the same here. They should be able to compete with Red Bull. I think it's the only team here on merit that can actually fight with them. Will they be faster than them? I doubt that, but they can actually fight here pretty well. It's a track that last year they were really good in. I expect the same here. The way the car is set up, this should be their bread and butter. If not this track, then they can't win it at any other track here on the rest of the year. This is their chance. Can Lewis get that victory? We'll have to see him. Now let's talk about the only team expected to bring up downgrades. Oh, upgrades. Sorry, stuttered there a little bit. They're probably bringing downgrades, but let's see what Aston Martin has to bring out. So they actually delayed their upgrade package in Mexico, which both Ted Kravitz and Mike Crack said that there were upgrades coming. By the way, these guys all season have said upgrades are coming. I feel like I am a broken record at this point with Aston Martin and saying that in every single video, they are bringing upgrades. While here in Brazil is what they're expected to bring, it could actually be a complete reversal to what the car is happening right now. They keep trying different specs. The car is failing in a lot of ways. Yes, Alonso had floor damage in Mexico. Would they have gotten points? No, the car is still super behind. And even in the hands of Alonso, it's a tricky beast to handle. Can I even call it a beast? It's a car that is very bad right now. They did a really reverse 180 of what McLaren did this year. Does that mean that they will fail in 24? No. I actually still have a lot of belief in the team. I gotta believe in them. I like them. Do I think that this is a bad sign for them? Yes, because momentum is a huge player here in 2023. So if the car isn't good now, the real level of the team and the emotions are going to be down right now. They are testing a lot. They say they're picking up a lot of numbers. The whole entire side pod concept to me has just kind of gone away from what they originally had. I don't know why they haven't changed that. They changed the floor edge, but they actually have not changed the actual underfloor itself since a long time ago. They've been sticking with this kind of underfloor design for a bit. I don't know if they're going to bring anything. Mike Crack says upgrades are coming all the way to Abu Dhabi. So while these upgrade videos exist, I have to talk about Aston Martin. As I've said, they still have to have a lot of changes on the car. The car is super behind, and do I expect them to do good here? Honestly, I don't know. I think the car is just in a really weird state. I don't expect them to do good. It's not been a great season for them when it comes to the second half. First half was beautiful. While this track is closest to Zandvoort, I still don't expect this car to be good here. So we'll have to see. Upgrades are supposedly coming. Will they come? I can't tell you that for certain because Mike Crack and Ted Kravitz can't also tell us for certain, and one of them works for the Aston Martin team. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Leave some predictions. Let's talk about the cars. And we're now focused into 2024. So a lot will be talked about with 2024 and where these real specs of these cars will be going into the next season. Let me know your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.